Hello and welcome to Resin Crafting with Chris Collected. On today's episode, we are going to be using art resin to make several different resin molds, as well as finish this one from the previous week. As you can see, the sakura flowers have all gone to the bottom, or should I say the top of this mold once we demold it, as well as a bunch on the base. We will be using some Jujutsu Kaisen molds as well. Today we'll be using Pearl EX Mink, which is a reddish metallic powder, as well as Magenta from Tahitian Sunrise Co. and Gunmetal from the same company. These are both mica powders. I will be filling up to 10 total. This is a 1-to-1 ratio, so part 1 will be to 5 and part 2 will be to 10. First, we're going to start with part 1 and put it up to the level 5. Next, we're going to put in the hardener and put that up to level 10. They need to be mixed to proper measurements, otherwise the result will not be a good, usable product. I recently got an electric stirrer, and so next week I should be using that in a video. If you'd like to see some of these molds, make sure to check out my unboxing life. Videos every Wednesday. I got plenty more resin molds that I have on order, and plenty more that I've already gotten, so make sure to check it out. You can see me unbox it on Wednesday and use it on Thursday. I'm hoping that new one will create less bubbles. As you can see, I always have so many bubbles in my resin. I just stir way too aggressively. I wanted to use 3 colors for this, and so I needed 3 different containers for the resin. I've recently realized that it's better to put the mica powder in first, and so I will be trying to do that in future videos. Otherwise, it has a tendency to go everywheres. Each of these smaller containers will be filled up to their 80mm lines, and I will just leave the rest into that large container. Now, ultimately, I did not go into this plan having pre-made measurements. I just wanted to make them equal, and whatever the colors kind of ended up being, they ended up being. First off, we're going to use mink, and that is going to be put into the large container. I really wanted it to be opaque, so I put a double scoop into this one. While this magenta, I wanted it to be mostly see-through, so I actually put a very small amount in. Next up, we have the gunmetal. I put kind of a medium amount of powder into that one. Alright, now let's go ahead and stir them up. As you can see through it a little bit, but it is pretty dark. As you can see, this magenta is very see-through. That's what I find very fascinating about mica powder is it is very much concentration based, meaning the more you put in there, the more concentrated the color will be. The less you put in, the less concentrated it will be. I wanted this one to be very dark, and so I ended up putting a lot into it and had to stir it up a whole bunch. But man, it does look good. I've learned recently that if you wait a little bit after mixing the colors, you can get some of the bubbles to come up, and so I went ahead and popped them while they're still in the container. This flame does not get hot enough to burn the silicone, so it's safe to do. Okay, first up, I wanted to finish this one that we started last week. Make sure to check out that video if you have not seen it already. What I wanted to do here is I've been looking into a lot of people doing geo designs, and so this is done similar to how you would do a geo design, where you pour into the center over and over again. And it made a really interesting effect. This piece is honestly probably my favorite piece that I have created so far. So make sure to stay to the end and see what it looks like. And see if it's your favorite as well. So as you can see in this technique, you just pour into the center over and over again. As you can see from my flame, I have a very well ventilated room. The flame can barely stand. Next up, let's do our Jujutsu Kaisen molds. This first one is Sakuna, who is considered to be one of the bad guys. Next up is Gojo, who is considered to be the main good guy. This again is one of those ones where I decided to do the mixed pouring technique where you pour all of it into the center. It creates an interesting effect, especially as the gunmetal is a little heavier than the magenta, and so one sinks, one floats. Let's go ahead and push those out of the way and have more room in the center. Next up is our little mushroom mold. And now for something a little different. I've decided to switch my camera angles, and you guys can tell me what you think. This is a picture frame mold. What it is designed to do is put a photo into the resin, but you would have to use a clear resin for that, not this heavily pigmented one. And so I just wanted to use this as an experiment today to see what would be the pros and cons of this mold, and is something that maybe in the future I could offer as a product, like send me a photo and I encase it in resin for you. However, the result of this mold, I think I will be looking for other pitcher molds. The back of it ended up, I think I might have put too much resin in it, and so it ended up bulging in a very weird manner. It's hard to describe without being able to really feel it. But the back support has a cross in the middle. And so the cross was flat, but all the pieces around it are sagging. So it's like 4 small little humps on the back of it. The top of it is flat, but the bottom of it is not. And so I think I need a better mold. Also, I've been thinking of putting some styrofoam underneath of these silicone molds. That way they will not sink, even though I put too much resin in them. If you have any tips for how to make sure that your silicone mold does not stretch and gives you the proper result, please put it in the comments below. Otherwise, I will continue to experiment until I have found out the best way. Now let's get back to our regular camera angles. I figured the top down was better for this one. This technique is a double pour, similar to the geode style, where you're dumping it in as fast as you possibly can. The advantage of that technique is that it fills it as quick as possible, and so you end up with one side truly being one color and the other side being the other. However, I do not leave it that way. I will afterwards be swirling them together, as the gunmetal will bloom, as it is called in resin crafting, against the magenta. And what that means is that the heavier gunmetal will fall into the resin and make it so that you have these individual little cells. Make sure to stay to the end of the video and you can see what I'm talking about. I think this piece would have been even better if I had kept swirling it even more. But at this time, I kind of just chose to do one big swirl. In the future, I think I might do a lot of small swirls and get a lot of blooming going on. Now let's go ahead and pop all those bubbles. I am working diligently to make sure that I have the best and highest quality product before I start selling my resin pieces. I do have fabric and rugs available. Make sure to check out hofirugs.com, or you can go to chris_collected or hofirugs on Instagram and DM me for customs, commissions, or to see what is currently in stock. Next up, I decided to put a little bit of glitter into the mushroom mold. I figured it would have a kind of spore look to it. And as we've learned, we have to make sure that we sink the glitter. And so I used one of my new tools to make sure I can push all that glitter down in there. I think the piece turned out wonderful. Now I'm going around and trying to release any of the bubbles that are stuck onto the sides. You do this by putting a tool. I have this offset spatula, and I can put that one in there. There are lots of other tools that you could use, though. One more round of popping bubbles. And actually, even after the video, about 5 minutes later, I came and went back and popped bubbles again. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and I hope you enjoy watching. Please consider liking, commenting, and most importantly, subscribing.